The Rise and Shine podcast series is made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois.
Sex therapist Esther Perel writes that love enjoys knowing everything about you, but desire needs mystery. Love likes to shrink the distance that exists between me and you, while desire is energized by it.
This is Rise and Shine, a podcast that offers timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations to fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note. Here is Adrienne Gold Davis.
There is nothing more painful than trying to convince someone to love you. It doesn't seem to make a difference what techniques you use, whether you're the consummate pleaser and you're anticipating the needs of your beloved and you strive to fill them before they are even aware that they need anything, or whether it's the endless acquiescence and yielding to their needs so that they will finally see you as invaluable to them. Whatever it is you do, it is galling to finally understand that it just doesn't work. You cannot make someone fall in love with you. You can't create mutual chemistry where it's one-sided. We often believe that when we clearly aren't loved, that we can force it into being. I mean, often you can get in the house, so to speak, but you won't get to stay in it for the eternity you're hoping for. Attaining doesn't necessarily guarantee maintaining. To keep love alive, both parties have to want to fight for it, to recreate it continually, because love is a verb, it's a behavior. Chemistry and attraction can bring you two in love, but real, true, enduring love requires the very things we use to attract love, just not at the beginning and not when it's unrequited. As M. Scott Peck writes in his famous book, The Road Less Traveled, the problem is that the experience of falling in love is invariably temporary. No matter whom we fall in love with, we sooner or later fall out of love if the relationship continues long enough. Now, this is not to say that we invariably cease loving the person with whom we fell in love, but it's to say that the feeling of ecstatic lovingness that characterizes that experience of falling in love always passes. The honeymoon always ends. The bloom of romance always fades. So in a world that promotes a Hollywood happy ending where love stays exactly the same for all eternity, Peck's words, they're kind of hard to handle. And yet, we should ask ourselves too, why do arranged marriages have a decent success rate? There's so many cultures where a couple will meet on their wedding day after being carefully chosen for any number of reasons. Maybe it's family merging, financial merging, cultural or religious alignment. It's because no matter where you start, we will all have two marriages. The one that is driven by chemistry, where we claim to be in love, a love match. And the one we will create together the moment the chemistry fades. Now, this is not to say that chemistry can't return. It can and it will. But there is no question that it will change. That which is readily available is not nearly as compelling as that which is new or even forbidden. As Adam and Eve discovered in the Garden of Eden, that forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is just too compelling. So, in her marvelous book called Mating in Captivity, the marriage therapist and sex therapist Esther Perel writes that love enjoys knowing everything about you, but desire needs mystery. Love likes to shrink the distance that exists between me and you, while desire is energized by it. If intimacy grows through repetition and familiarity, eroticism is numbed by repetition. It thrives on the mysterious, the novel, and the unexpected. Well, this idea dovetails nicely with what Rabbi Manis Friedman writes in his spectacular book, Doesn't Anyone Blush Anymore, where he says that the purpose of modesty is not to hide ourselves from view, that the purpose of modesty is to preserve our intimacy. As soon as we trespass where we haven't been invited, we destroy the boundaries and dissipate the intimacy. So, in traditional Jewish life, there is a mitzvah that is called Taharat HaMishpacha, the family purity laws. Now, not purity as in cleanliness, so that's required too, but purity as in novelty and renewal, as in take me back to the beginning, as in help keep my family life fresh and renewed. It goes like this. In traditional Jewish life, a married couple will refrain from any form of physical intimacy for approximately half the month. It's actually ordered by the woman's menstrual cycle. For at least a minimum of the 5 days of menstruation and for a 7-day stretch, the moment the period ends, a husband and wife are physically separated. Now, for some traditional Jews, this even includes cuddling and kissing and even holding hands. But that separation period helps build desire and mystery. And if you've already done the math, you're going to note that after what's going to be a minimum of 12 to about 15 days in the cycle, right when you go to that mikvah, which is the ritual bath we visit, and you reunite, you're at ovulation as well. Now, who could have known this thousands of years ago, if not our Creator who gave us this directive? And when a couple reunites after the woman visits the mikvah, there is a wedding night quality to that reunion. There's a fresh newness and a reclaiming of one another emotionally and physically. And in the time leading up to that reunion, both parties use all of their arsenal as a kind of emotional foreplay in the absence of any physical affection. So we talk to each other and we truly listen and we attempt to please our beloved in ways that will make them feel seen and respected and loved and admired, but without the shorthand of physical touch. In short, we court them again. Every month, for half the month, we do all the things we used to do at the beginning, all of the things we tried when we were trying to make someone love us, even unrequitedly. But this time, it's in the pursuit of love as a verb, as in knowing we can make love. Not in the vernacular as we think of it these days, but as in the making and forging of love, to keep the promise that we made to each other under the marriage canopy. Because when we promise to love one another, that does not always mean that we will feel loving. And it does not always mean that we will feel desire. It means we will behave lovingly regardless of what we may be feeling. And that is the truest form of commitment. So back to the start. Don't turn yourself inside out for someone who doesn't want you in the way that you want them. Save those machinations for the person you will ultimately marry and start a family with, because you're going to need those moves, just not for convincing someone to want you. You need them for keeping your commitment and for having a continual renaissance of love, but one that the two of you forge together. This week, can you take a look at the difference between your efforts to find love and the efforts you will go to keep it? Can we accept the fact that while chemistry is a tremendous power and force, renewing chemistry is an even more powerful one? What have you done for love? And what are you willing to do to keep it alive?
Thanks for listening to Rise and Shine. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Momentum Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join Adrienne again next time for more timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations that fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note.
This podcast was made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois. Spread the wisdom. Inspire Jewish individuals around the globe by supporting Momentum's podcasts. To sponsor, contact podcast@momentumunlimited.org. You're listening to a Momentum podcast. For unlimited inspiration, wisdom, and empowerment, visit momentumunlimited.org.